interest in the school system and your feedback that you'll provide us tonight as we continue to refine some of the challenges that we have and ask for your guidance and ask for your suggestions as we continue to move forward. This obviously is the February town hall meetings. We had a series of meetings in January to get community feedback. We held a meeting last night at 6, this afternoon at 2, and this is the final of the February town hall meetings to continue to refine and gather feedback from our community on our next steps. What do we look at and how do we move forward? What I'm going to talk briefly about and try to keep within 5 to 7 minutes is just a brief overview of some of the information that we provided at the last meeting, as well as then kind of to set the stage of, again, why are we here? I'll turn it over to James, and then James will talk a little bit about the last meeting, some of the findings, and then we're going to turn it back over to you as well to then answer some questions and again help refine and give us some directions as we move to the future. So just to walk through the district's process, and again, this has been an ongoing discussion within our school system, within our community now for several years on our facilities. It really started several years ago with a high school focus. The district took a step back to look at this holistically, to look at this as a pre-K-12 system. We hired a firm called Estes Construction, and they are called Iowa Construction Advocacy Team for the Iowa Association of School Boards to help create this framework of a facility plan. And then we went through a very finite process to be able to hire Fielding Air International, who works with districts to ensure that we are making good plans, making good judgments based on the needs of our facilities, the needs of our community as we move forward. And they are a national firm that does work not only nationally but internationally to help prepare districts to look at their facilities. We asked them to be able to focus on 4 different objectives. Number 1, ensure that we have the facilities that meet our educational goals, to ensure that we are focusing on how do we maintain that excellence and grow and continue to challenge our students academically as we move to the future. To look at the impact of 900 students growth in our district over the next 10 years. Looking back the past 10 years, we've grown 800 students in the last 10 years. Our projections into the future show a growth of 900 students as we look to the future of 2023 to 2024. We asked them to develop scenarios based on those projections and how they relate to our educational goals, and then help us plan the next phases of our work with that 50-year vision. The decisions we make now are going to be a lasting impact for several years to come, and the hope is to be able to plan that forward because the money we invest now should last for 40 to 50 years. From that work, there's a myriad of options that were developed. From those options, we went out and started to engage multiple different avenues, multiple different groups. You can see here we worked with our district facility committee made up of constituents across our community. We held building level meetings in each of our attendance centers, each of our buildings, to ask for feedback from our staff. Which options resonate with you? Which options are going to help us meet those educational goals? We held 10 public forums last spring and asked our community the same question. Here's some of the challenges. Here's some of the options. Help pare down these different options to what should be placed on the bond ballot so we can continue to move forward to handle some of the challenges we have as a district. And then we used all of those surveys, all of that information that was provided to us to develop a recommendation that went to the facility committee and finally to the board, and it included this questions on the bond ballot in September. To remodel and add additions to North Cedar and Orchard Hill Elementary, to be able to bring those elementary schools up to the educational facility quality of our other 4 elementary buildings, to add a new elementary building to handle the capacity growth, the number of students that we have coming before us. And even now, we challenge where we struggle with the number of students we have, especially in some of our elementary buildings. A new high school to overcome some of the challenges we have at the high school with the needs that we have as we look educationally at the quality of classroom spaces and the arrangements of those spaces. Then repurpose the current high school. We know that came to a $118 million bond question, 128 total cost of that, those projects that are listed, and that failed in September. So from there, we took a step back, and this is just a brief timeline. We opened up a survey following that September bond election in October to ask for feedback, ask for information. We held 3 different staff forums on October 29th and 30th. We held a series of listening posts during the week of November 11th through 17th to continue to gather feedback, really with one purpose in mind. Tell us your thoughts, tell us your ideas, tell us your concerns, tell us your reasons why the bond failed. And then we started to have these town hall meetings to continue to refine those challenges that we have and give us those solutions as we look forward into the future to make sure we're making those right decisions educationally for our community as a whole. So we held those meetings, the first town hall series of meetings, January 21st and 22nd, and now we're here this evening to finish up the February meetings. The steps taken, from those listening posts, from those community surveys that we had and instituted, there were 3 reasons that came out why the bond failed. And again, these were the 3 top reasons, I should say. Number 1, overall cost. People felt that was overwhelmingly the number 1 reason, that it was a high cost, $118 million. There's a lot of money, we understand that. Lumping projects together, and we had 5 different projects underneath that bond, and that resonated through these surveys, through those listening posts. And then clarity of information, to ensure that we have much more clear information, information that shows detailed plans, detailed and implications for taxing for individual homes or businesses, and people wanted that clarity of information. So at the last town hall meeting, we really focused on that, and James will talk through that and some of the findings, but we focused on those 3 areas to ask for more guidance, more information, get people's thoughts and ideas on how we can provide and overcome some of those challenges. We know that we are going to have more clear plans as we move forward, whatever those plans may look like, and we need your help to continue to set that direction. We need our community's input and guidance as we move forward. We know we do still face challenges. We still have facilities that don't meet those educational goals as we look to the future. And we know we have capacity issues. That's going to be something that we will continue to face as we look at the future. And even right now, in this present day, we have some capacity challenges. So we need your help in determining those next steps. We need your help to be able to establish viable solutions. And we need to be able to make sure that people understand we don't have the capacity for funding to do this without some sort of a general obligation bond. And we have not had a bond election or a bond passed, general obligation bond in Cedar Falls since 1976, so almost 40 years. And that's one of the challenges that we have to look at and face as we move to the future. And we know any general obligation bond requires a 60% plus 1 supermajority, and that's why we need your help to refine those viable solutions. And again, nothing has been decided. We need your help as we refine and continue to look at the future. And tonight we'll continue to ask some questions and be able to get your input as we look at some of those next steps. Before I turn it over to James, can I help answer any questions? And we'll certainly have other opportunities to answer questions as well. Okay, I'll turn it over to James.
Okay, can everybody hear me okay? Is this good? So I'm going to start with just an overview of a few of the things that we had uncovered when we did our master plan work. This was 2 years ago, 2013. We were brought in to look at every single facility and to really understand the issues that the district is facing. And so we uncovered really 2 major issues at that time. One is a shortage of space. So we actually went through and toured every single facility. We looked at the size of them. We looked at the floor plans to understand how much square footage you have. Comparing that to national averages, we found that the district lacks space based on current enrollment. Also, the enrollment that is projected in the district based on the enrollment projections, these were provided by a firm, RSP Associates, that did a 10-year projection to show where is the district growing. And based on that, it's going to further exacerbate the situation. They uncovered that there's going to be a 900 student growth over a 10-year period. And I'll go into a little bit more detail on that piece. And then some schools have had new classrooms added to address growing enrollment. However, auxiliary spaces such as administration and gyms, specialty rooms, they're not quite adequate, that there's not enough support spaces to handle the amount of students. The second piece was the alignment of facilities with educational goals. So as part of our process, we talked to teachers, we talked to administrators as we went through the buildings. We had a focus group with the principals of all of the schools, and we found that there needs to be better alignment, that education has changed in the district, and so therefore spaces really need to align with where education is going in the district. So there's a need for flexible, agile, and collaborative spaces are needed to foster a variety of learning activities. So the district is doing a lot of different things right now with education, a lot of different learning modalities, and so having those spaces are crucial. Discussing the enrollment projections, again, this was provided by a firm, RSP Associates. And they look at this as a real holistic way of understanding where is the district going, what is the growth in the area. They look at all kinds of things, new houses being built, a lot of things go into these calculations to determine this. And so they found that there's an overall projected 10-year growth of 16.7%, that at the elementary level it's projected to grow 11.6%, at the junior high level is projected to grow 23%, and at the high school level projected to grow 23.4%. And so we had graphed that out to understand a little bit better how that relates to each of the schools. And so this is the elementary school projections. And you can see that several of the schools remain kind of flat with the numbers, but the two schools, Southdale and Hanson, there's a lot of growth there. And so that starts to tell us kind of where the growth is happening in the district. This is the growth, or the enrollment projections for the junior high schools. So you can see both of the junior high schools are kind of growing at an even rate there. And then at the high school, there's a little bit of a growth. So right now it's under 1,200, a little bit of a growth. It kind of remains flat for a little bit, and then it jumps up around that 2018, 2019 year, and it's just under about 1,400 students. So there's a 200 student growth projected at the high school. When we worked with the principals and talked about what types of spaces they needed, these are some examples of some of the things that we talked about. So a need for small group collaboration areas, common areas, spaces for one-to-one work, transparency between classrooms for team teaching. We found that PLCs, professional learning communities, is a huge effort that's been undertaken in the district, and it's working extremely well. And so having spaces that are more conducive to those types of things is really important. Areas to do project work, connections to the outdoor, flexible classrooms. So a lot of different things that we have went through and talked through to understand what types of spaces are needed. The brainstorming that we did on the first town hall meetings was really about getting your input as a community as far as where do we go from here. And as Dr. Petit was saying, the bond passed, so really we are looking at this with fresh eyes now. We really want your input to understand what are the next steps, where do we go. And so tonight we are going to do another brainstorming activity with you to further hear your input as far as where do we go. During the session, we looked at what the key concerns were. So the overall cost, we had each of the groups discuss that and talk about the cost. Is it too much? Was it not enough? Is it, what is the right amount? And so the findings that we found from that, there was a lot of great discussion, a lot of feedback. There was consensus that the district is facing a problem and that something needs to be done. So every group talked about that there is a problem, it's a real problem, something has to be done. Some groups thought the cost was too high, so we specifically asked, is it too high, how much should it be? So some groups thought, yes, it was too high. Some groups thought that the cost was okay or even too low. And so there is mixed views on this issue. Some groups were unsure because they felt they didn't have enough information and clarity of information. And that's a theme we hit on a couple times here. There was a lot of that type of discussion. Most groups wanted more clarity as to what the cost was actually getting them. So they wanted to know what the value was. So not just the overall cost isn't too much, but what is the value? What is it getting me? Most groups wanted more clarity on what the overall cost would be to individual taxpayers. So there's some confusion over that as far as what does it cost the individual taxpayer. There's a need to show the community that this is a valid and needed cost. So again, what is the value? What's the value proposition here? The second topic that was covered was clarity of information. That kind of related to a lot of the points that were uncovered during the cost. And so need more clarity about how it impacts property tax. We'd like a detailed property tax scale, so more information to be able to make a decision. Clear plans and visualizations of what the $118 million would buy. So they felt that there was not actual physical plans or a picture of even what the school would look like. That was important to be able to understand, if you're passing a bond or if you're voting on it, what is it going to buy me? If new sites are used, what properties will be sold, and a clear plan for what will happen to the existing high school. So not enough information about that. Questions about whether or not the new high school site was a good choice. We'd like to have a clear analysis as to why the site was chosen, including what other sites were considered. So that came out of the discussions of more of an analysis, understanding of why decisions were made. Communication about the plan needs to be better, so using town hall meetings, email, regular mail, Channel 15, along with other media outlets, Cedar Fall Times. So really exploring, really reaching out to the community any way possible. The third topic was lumping projects together. And so, everything was elementaries and the high school were in the bond, and so they talked about some groups thought it would be better to go for the whole plan in one bond. Some groups thought it would be better to do the elementary schools first because there's a higher need at the elementary school level. There was some concern that if the elementary schools are split out, that the high school will never get done. That if a bond passes for the elementary schools, that people will just forget about the high school, and there may be there's still a need there. Some groups questioned the need of doing work at the high school. They wanted to see a plan, evidence showing there's a need. So again, more clarity of information that why is there a need there, and a plan that shows that. The last question was challenges and opportunities for solving that problem. So this was kind of open-ended. We wanted to hear how do we move forward, the next steps, and what kind of challenges are we going to face, and any opportunities. So communication with public, that was a key thing. That's on the previous bond, they felt that there needed to be better communication, need for multiple formats and outlets, and proper time for the community to digest the information. So the time is very important. How will the schools align with educational goals? So bringing it back to education, what does it mean to education? Need to convince the public that the investment is worthwhile and need more specifics. Better collaboration between you and I, the city and the district, and need to keep community informed of the entire process. So as we go through this process, the community needs to be informed and kept abreast of what's happening. Continue a tradition of excellence and think outside of the box. Don't just use comparisons. So I was showing in the beginning during our master plan, it's a real high-level look, and we only can look at comparisons at that level. And so the community, some of the groups talked about, let's think out of the box with the district as we move forward. So don't just base it on comparisons. Have a plan in place and have that clarity of information. So with that, tonight we are going to do a brainstorming to continue that. But I guess before I get into that, I'll pause for a moment if anybody has any questions at all. No questions. All right. So the next step here is we want to hear about really kind of the end goal here. And so we understand that really out of all of those key findings from the last brainstorming session that there needs to be a plan and that there needs to be more clearer information. That was, that really came out of every session. And so when developing a plan or developing that clarity of information, it does take time to go through that, to do an analysis and take time to do that. So we want to understand how far do we go with that. Because you could really, analyze every single little option and go through a tremendous amount of time to really understand what the problem is and develop any plans, but it takes time, and that also costs money to develop those plans. And so we want to understand how far do we go, and what are the scenarios, what is our end game, so what are we trying to target here. So in your groups, we want you to discuss these 3 scenarios. And we're going to hand out a sheet that gives kind of instructions to kind of work through. And the first scenario is, okay, what if we go for the elementary schools and high school bond vote this year, June of 2015? What does that mean? What are the pros of that? What are the cons of that? Is that something you would recommend? Scenario 2, just do the elementary schools in June this year and wait until next year to go for the high school. So split them apart. And it would be perhaps February or April of next year for the high school. And then scenario number 3, wait until next year for both, for the elementary school and the high school. So what we want you to do is evaluate what are the pros and cons of each of those scenarios. And then we're going to discuss some recommendations for next steps. So for this to work effectively, it helps to have groups of 4 or more. So so we have 2 here, and it might be helpful that, it looks like there's a group back there of 2. Maybe you guys could join that group back there, and it looks like everybody else is okay. And what we ask is that you choose one person to serve as the scribe, who's going to basically take notes and bullet point everything that was discussed. On the handouts, if you just basically kind of follow through, there's guiding questions that will help you through the process. And I ask that one person serve as a timekeeper. You'll have 30 minutes for this entire activity, and each question has a little time limit on it. Please try to stay to that time and work through all of the questions. So the timekeeper's job is to kind of keep everybody on task. So with that, go ahead. I think everybody has the handout. Go ahead and get started.